Welcome to Tent Talk, the podcast with Nancy McCready, where we talk about life under the big tent of God's presence and the provoking process of discipleship. Here we go.
Hey everybody, welcome to Tent Talk. This is Nancy McCready. It's a red letter day. We're celebrating the finish of 6 years here at Nancy McCready Ministries. Take a listen, what it takes to really prepare to follow Him and to step into the long-range plan of your life with Him and your assignment. I pray it encourages you. Celebrate with us. Love you all. It's a red letter day for Nancy McCready Ministries. We are finishing 6 full, amazing, strong years. We launched Nancy McCready Ministries on August 2nd, 2018. So in today's episode, I want to honor God's amazing long-range plan that we are participating in, His faithfulness to what it is that He said that He was doing. We want to honor those who have partnered with us, who have literally walked with us, run with us, sat and had meals with us, strategized with us, laughed with us, cried with us, rejoiced with us as our partners of Nancy McCready Ministries. And we want to be also in great anticipation for what is about to happen. So welcome to Red Letter Day. August the 2nd, 2024, the 6th anniversary of NMM. You know, in 2018, I completed a 20-year assignment as an executive pastor at Christian City Fellowship here in our town of Sealy, Texas. I completed that assignment on July 31st, and we launched NMM on August 2nd. Now, God had been preparing me for many years, and I want you not to just listen to this as though it's just some dry, dusty partner meeting. No, this is the podcast, Tent Talk Podcast, and I want you to hear it as a part of the encouragement to you of what it really means to prepare, to stay steady, to continue, to expand, to flourish, to experience pruning. Anything that's being fruitful, my friends, is going to be pruned so that there can be more fruitfulness. And I'm praying that you'll hear something today that causes you to take a new step in the direction of what God is doing in you and just some of the real time, ebb and flow of what it takes. And you've heard me say it enough times to know this is not a glamorous work. I pray it's full of God's glory, but it is not glamorous. It is day in and day out. But oftentimes, if we don't share process, if we don't celebrate those marker moments, right, then we never take the opportunity to tell someone else, hey, listen, these are His ways. This is a part of running your race. And so for me, God gave me about 7 years of preparation. Now, for many of those, I did not know exactly what form and shape that was going to take. But I made an acceptance speech on my 51st birthday, December 15th, 2011. And I did not know really the watermark moment that it was. It was a simple Wednesday night. At church, I was an executive pastor. It was my assignment to preach on that particular Wednesday. And God had been dealing with me and spoke with me and told me, Nancy, I'm about to introduce you to you on a whole new level. He said, you're not out here anywhere. You can't continue to look at people out here to try to figure out who you are and what you're to do. He said, I am about to introduce you to you at a whole new depth. He said, and you are inside. You're not going to be able to look out here and just mimic or parrot. Not that that's what I had been doing, but oftentimes you do watch others, you walk with others, you learn from others, but there comes a time when God begins to shift you from moving more with the herd, and he begins to get you very ready for your specifics of living in the deepest levels of oneness with him. And on that night, I made an acceptance speech, and I stepped forward and accepted what God had been speaking to me. And I talked about how whenever there's an election, then the winner steps forward and makes an acceptance speech. I also mentioned, of course, that the loser has to make a concession speech, because listen to me, my friends, the enemy is going to act like he's still the winner as long as you keep acting like you're the loser. Let me say that again. The enemy is going to keep acting like he's the winner if you keep acting like you're the loser. If you never step forward and accept not only who you are, but accept the preparation and the responsibility and come into depths of agreement with God, maybe that you never have before. If you do not step forward and say what your Father is saying, do as your Father is doing, then the enemy keeps acting like he's the one who's large and in charge. But on that night, though I didn't realize it, there were things reverberating in the spiritual realm between the Father and I, and an alert, I believe, was, going out. Not to be too dramatic or to make too much of it, but I do believe this, that someone in the earth is believing the Father at a new depth. That's you, that's me. This is very important. We should not try to shrink these things down in their importance. And so on that night, I didn't fully realize that it was like lighting a match and setting it to a fuse that would burn for the next 7 years, from 2011 until 2018. And in a very time-released, incremental way, God began to internally get me ready. He began to speak to me about things of myself. He began to awaken me at new levels to his love, to who I was to him, who I would be in my generation. Again, we're not talking about fame and fortune. We're just talking about serving as God calls you to do, serving your generation, stepping forward and being willing to believe big enough with God for whatever it is that he's written over your life. So I made that acceptance speech, and things began to shift in me. And it was quiet. It was between the Father and I. I began to see things differently. He began to address integrity issues, character issues. He got very intricate inside of me. And things that were going to have to go, things that could stay, and then welcoming in new things. Then that went on for a few years, and I then had probably about a 3-year awareness. So about 4 years into that 7 years, about 3 years where I began to really sense it ratcheting up, and I began to get clearer in what form this might begin to take. I received a call from a Polish pastor in 2013, someone that I'd met in 2006. You can see the long-range plan that God had. Because in 2006, God said to me, there is going to be a well-worn path between Sealy and Poland. Now, I didn't understand what that meant. I didn't even know if it had anything to do with me. But I knew that I had heard it. And I heard it upon moments before meeting this particular Polish pastor, Paweł Godawa, out of Koszalin, Poland, in the very north of Poland, on the Baltic Sea, near the Baltic Sea. And this is who I received the call from in 2013. I was simply letting God build capacity inside of me. I was letting him prepare me in the quiet routine of every day. He was building stamina within me. He was dealing with authority issues within me. Because, my friends, if we do not allow him to deal with issues of authority in us, We cannot mature, and then we can't turn around and become the authority that He's called us to be. And I'm thinking about next week's podcast episodes, AQ, authority quotient, and BQ, bitterness quotient. So we'll see if that materializes. But that's next week. Let's stay with today. So when I received that email, that call, Nancy, come, we need what you're doing, please come. So that was towards the end, I believe, of 2013. And in May of 2014, Wen and I, with the blessings of the pastoral leadership at that time that we were serving with, they sent us out to Poland. And what do you know? That fuse was being lit, and that long-range plan was continuing to unfold. And then it was another few years until I knew and gave, I think, somewhere between a 12 and 18-month notice that I knew that we were about to go to nations. I won't go through all the details of that, all that it took, but let me tell you, it was intricate, it was necessary, it was detailed. We were blessed and honored in the way that all of that transition and shift took place. It was not without its ripples, its bumps, because, my friends, we're on a huge learning curve. And to expect that it's never going to have, a tailspin here or there, that's unrealistic. In ourselves, maybe in, relationships with others, all of that. But that's a part of the real deal. And I am glad for all of it, because every single bit of it, every up and down and sideways, every lateral move, every vertical, horizontal, everything contributed to how God was getting us ready for the major shift that would happen in the summer of 2018. And so we had been in Poland from 2014, and then when this shift happened, and we began the new assignment and birthed and launched Nancy McCready Ministries with the help and the blessing of many friends and pastoral leadership and all of that. We launched out. And I can honestly say that from that moment until now, the amazing power, provision, processes, everything that God has walked us into, He has, of course, proven to be faithful. How could He not be? It was His idea, not ours. God wasn't making my dream come true. I know this may sound bold, but I'm a part of making God's dream come true, aren't you? Isn't it sons that He desires? Isn't it that? Can we not just simply agree with Him? Now, it's a nightmare to the enemy, but it's the dream of God, the reality of our Father, to have sons who will move with Him in the earth according to His long-range plan. I'm not trying to convince God to give me ministry. I was discovering that it wasn't over. I knew that I could not continue in the capacity that I was. I knew that I'd done all that I knew to do, all that I was supposed to do. The grace for that assignment, that 20-year assignment, lifted, and we began to launch out into NMM. So, it's a red letter day. We are celebrating today. We are ringing the bell. We are giving a big shout to say, we've finished 6 years. And in that course of time, I won't go through everything that it's entailed, but I will say that in 2018, we were already in Holy Shift. I mean, we've been in Holy Shift for quite some time. But that acceptance speech in December of 2011 definitely set things in course. And there was a great learning. I had to learn who was with me and for me and who wasn't. And my friends, you need to be glad when God allows for circumstances where things are seen, where they're known, and where you can get clear on things. Some of it is very grievous, right? Some of it's not that surprising, right? But God shows you, here are those who are going to continue to walk with you. Here are those who may not, right? And you begin to face those things because it's just necessary. Why would you want to remain connected if God says those things are done. Maybe not because anybody's done anything wrong, it's just it's time. And then to turn and be willing to receive the grace to step into new connections, new partnerships, all of that for God's purposes. So we continued in Poland for those next few years. And then you might remember something that happened, Corona. And this was an amazing time, my friends, because God had already set in motion. If you remember in the early months of 2020, this is when it all began to unfold, unravel, and went full blown as 2020 went on. But God had already told me in 2019 to set in motion an online messenger school that would run for 5 months, January to May. All of it was already in motion. And then boom, what do you know? I'm sitting right there at the time in my home, in my butler's pantry. That was the worldwide headquarters of NMM, was in my butler's pantry, right? And there you had it. We were already online. God had already told me to switch from Skype to Zoom. And later I realized, wow, he had gotten us ready. And things just continued to move. There was momentum. All of that was happening. I had to cancel my 6-week trip into Poland. I believe that April and May. But my friends, that was the only trip that I ended up having to cancel because through a series of events, and again, with the sovereign connections that God had been making in 2019 that served his purposes in 2020, we began in August of 2020 and it ran all the way through November of 2021 in the guts of the COVID virus when everybody was on lockdown. I made 9 round trips into Europe during those months. And God was opening up doors because, again, we had only been in Poland and the USA. We were in Iowa. We were in Texas. And, you know, I always used to laugh and say it was like Abraham. If somebody would say, oh, you're the father, you know, of nations. How many children do you have? He's like 0. And I would sometimes laugh and say, people would ask me, oh, you disciple nations. How many nations? 2. Okay. But I would say the 2 most strategic nations on the planet. Of course, I would say that. You ought to believe what you're doing is the most strategic. I was in Poland and the US of A. And I thought, if those are the only 2 nations that we're ever in, then so be it. Well, guess what happened? The acceleration. Now, remember, from 2014 to 2019, I had been going into Poland 2 times a year. And now, when the whole world goes into lockdown, in just a few months, I made 9 round trips. Now, that's not to show how anointed I am, how important I am. That was an indicator of the acceleration of what was happening in Europe. And I'm sure in many other places in the world. I would have people texting me, sending me messages. Nancy, you're not supposed to be over there in Europe. I said, well, I am. God has made a way. He was training me. He was enlarging my capacity and my faith to believe for things that I had previously could not imagine seeing those doors open, but they did. And while we were in Poland during those months, Germany came to Poland, Austria came to Poland. These nations began to open to us, which then eventually has opened us up to the nations of Ireland and Norway and Paraguay and others. And this is how the kingdom of God works. Now, it's not about really how many nations. And I say this often, my friends, if you want to go to nations and you're willing to pay your way, you can go to as many nations as you want to. That's different than being invited in by strategic leaders, being sent into those nations on the assignment of God. So I would rather have 5, 6, 7 nations that we know are determined by God than to be able to say, I've been to 73 nations, but there's no work really going on. I went, I did an event, I left, nothing happened. We have been building now collectively for 6 years through NMM, 10 years in total, because I began going into Poland in 2014. So we are looking at an expansion and a flourishing. No matter what is going on in the world, God is doing it. And since then, we have been expanding, not just geographically. There is expansion in people. God promised me that He would connect me with lead sons, men and women, in the nations that He was sending me to. They would have jurisdiction in their nations, and He would connect me with them, and I would come alongside them to build what He'd already put in them and many other things, but that was the core essence of that. So here we are in the summer of 2024. It's a red letter day. We are celebrating all that it has meant, that which has been, those things that have passed. Not every partnership has continued. I would say the majority of them certainly have, but certain partnerships ran their course, and we thank God for them. We thank God for the doors that they opened. Many of the people that we're still in partnership with came through the doors of partnership that maybe now have run their course, or they've shifted in nature. And we are looking to simply stay with the Father in what He's doing. We are not trying to make something happen. We're not here doing ministry as usual. We're on assignment here at Nancy McCready Ministries. We have 4 core assignment goals, directives. Number 1, to reproduce messengers of the cross. And my friends, it is happening. It is happening. I could give you numbers, but it is happening. Number 2 is to win for the Lamb the rewards of His suffering, that He will see, according to Isaiah 53:11 and 12, He will see the fruit of the travail of His soul and be satisfied and divide the spoils with the mighty. My friends, the Lamb is receiving the rewards of His suffering, but we haven't seen anything yet. And the Lion is roaring over nations, my friends. The third one is to develop sons who will violently embrace their greatness, knowing that it absolutely comes from His goodness. That they will stop being just poor old sinners saved by grace, that these are people who will be in the true humility of God, who will rise up in boldness, that they will recognize that the kingdom of heaven invites and rewards violence, which means you pursue your share in the kingdom of God as your most precious prize. In Matthew, it says you'll do it with ardent zeal and intense exertion, that you pursue and you go after, you believe with God that He has made you exactly who He says that you are. And then the fourth goal is to transcend personality, charm, and narcissism, to raise up and to see arising sons who are Spirit-led, Spirit-intoxicated, Spirit-empowered, who refuse self-indulgence as their reward for service. That we will be sons who do not have to be bribed or pampered or spoiled. That we're letting God deal with us first, and then we are entering in for ourselves and then becoming big doors to other people. And so, my friends, we stand on the precipice, on the edge right now of another massive holy shift in the kingdom, and yes, also here at NMM. So we are stepping into an entirely new season. We are being pruned back to scale up. And so I am extremely, intensely scheduled here stateside for the remainder of this year. I will not at this point be going back into Europe because Europe is coming to us. There are many things that are in the works, and though I can't share all of them right now, they are settled, they are scheduled, there are things that are in motion, but it's a pruning back because we must follow the lead of what the Father is telling us. We are not here to maintain, because we are not status quo people. We are not here to just do the same old thing and try to do it just a little bit bigger. We are following his lead, and he has been clearly talking to me for about 2 years. And now I have discerned, Wynn and I together, Tina Kelly, our board, we have discerned that this is the time to allow him to prune back. So it might appear to you maybe that you don't see me traveling as much. My friends, travel is not all that we do. We are full-time here in the offices of Nancy McCready Ministries, day in and day out, producing materials, resources, mentoring, discipling. We're about to birth a phase 1 school of the Producer's Way, a phase 2 for those who have already completed phase 1 and are about to begin to be trained up as producers and mentors. We are stepping out in many new things, and they're a little bit hidden right now because they're in the incubator stage, if you will, and we just want to be careful about them and stay very steady with the Father, that I don't run ahead, I don't lag behind, and that we tend to these things, and then when the proper time comes, then we share those things. So though we are not having some big party today to celebrate our 6th anniversary, we will be gathering the last Sunday of September, and the location is to be determined. But I can promise you this, there will be European partners that will be there, several. There will be those that will be there from the US of A, and those who are here locally that can attend, and hopefully will do a live from that gathering. That Sunday, late afternoon, early evening, there will be an NMM gathering, informal, like we like to have. There'll be cold drinks and desserts, and we're going to have a simple and very good time. So you might want to save the date right now and come and celebrate with us, not only the past 6 years, but the present, and we are definitely going to celebrate the future of what God is doing and what he's had planned all along, and we're discovering it. We're allowing the development of it within us, and we're making, we believe, the proper decisions to stay in his timing, in his rhythm, for his purposes. So I want you to be encouraged today that as you've listened to some of this and to the details, I pray that it stirs you deep within. Step into your assignment with more clarity. If there's a way that what I've learned in these last many years that could help you, then call me. Call me, email me, and say, Nancy, I need to spend a little bit of time with you to pick your brain. I need to ask some questions. I need to have some of these conversations. If there are many of you, then we'll do it collectively. If it's a one-on-one, we'll do that. That's what we're doing, is producing producers. That doesn't get in our way. That is fully on our way, to pour into others who are ready to take up that baton, if you will, and to run their race. So I want to share in closing just a couple of things. One came to me last year in October when it was still the heat of Texas, and another one came to me just a couple of days ago. Back in October of 2023, I happened to be preaching at a church here in Texas, and it was hot in the morning, but because it was a distance from my home, I had spent the night, so I'd only taken a limited selection of clothing. And on that Sunday morning, as I got ready to go to church to preach at one of our most beloved partners' churches, I thought to myself, my goodness, Nancy, it is hot outside, and here you are wearing a coat, a blazer, a leather jacket. It was something. And I thought, well, it may not be too bad because inside the church, it'll be air conditioned. And but I felt kind of funny, kind of awkward, because I was like, I feel overdressed and out of sync. But it's what I brought, and that's what I'm going to have to wear. And then in the 2 or 3 hours of when I was getting ready and making last minute notes and getting ready to leave to go to the church, I heard the weather report or looked at it on my weather app on my phone, and it showed there was a 30-degree drop in temperature that afternoon. And the Father said to me, Nancy, you're not dressed wrongly. You're a sign of the shift that's coming. You're dressed for the next season. And I almost fell out. I was like, wow. I mean, then I was almost swagging, in my coat, okay, with a little, sweat beads on my lip. Because when I was wearing it that morning, it felt a little bit out of sync. But that afternoon, literally, the temperature basically went from like 90 degrees Fahrenheit to 60 degrees Fahrenheit within just moments, right? It shifted that afternoon. And I was dressed appropriately, but it was beforehand. And it encouraged me so much. And guess what I was preaching that day at that church was on holy shift as it applied to that church. And God spoke that to me. Nancy, you walk comfortably because you are dressed for the next season. All right, well, now speed up to just a couple of days ago. And this is the summer of 2024. And someone told me that they had a dream, and I was in that dream, and that they'd opened up a door, and there I was with rooms full of people, and that it was the summer. But I was in there, and I guess all the people were too. They were all singing Christmas carols. And immediately, and I'm not one to sit around trying to interpret dreams and all of that, but immediately in my spirit, the Lord said, one more time, Nancy, you're getting ready for the season to come. Walk comfortably, walk carefully, clearly, because what you're doing right now, nobody else may see, they may not fully understand, but you're getting ready for a season that is yet to be upon us. To be singing Christmas carols in the summer, well, eventually, my friends, how many of you know Christmas will be upon us? So the preparation in one season for the next season, God has now spoken this to me twice, and I know that we are in deep preparation for the next season. And I want to thank you for having been with us all this time, because Tent Talk Podcast is the podcast of Nancy McCready Ministries. And we are glad, and we hold our head high, that the Father would count us fruitful enough to prune, so that we can scale up and we can expand and flourish inside His people, and they will go on to do mighty exploits in their nations, in their state, in their city, in their town, wherever you are. Believe big enough with Him, even though you might feel awkward right now because it might not show up until another season. But I want you to remember that. I've been telling many people that I've been connected with over the years. We have rich history together, rich history. And I've told many of them, I am strikingly of the belief that our history together is really about our future. The whole reason that God connected us in the past is because of what He has planned for the future. My friends, let's step into that future together. Let's go forward. Let's believe Him for the largeness, the greatness, the magnitude of what it is that He's always had planned. And let's be glad-hearted, trustworthy, jealous sons who will give unto the Father whatever it is that His heart desires. Has He not satisfied you? He has certainly satisfied me. And I want now to turn and bring Him glory, honor, satisfaction, and delight on purpose through a deep responsiveness to Him. And I'm hoping that we will stay in this journey together, because we haven't seen anything yet, my friends. Everything up until this point has been getting us ready to go into the next places with Him. So I want to thank all of our individual financial partners, all of our corporate financial partners, all those who speak to us, give encouragement to us, fling wide the doors for us. And we pray that we've been returning the favor by swinging open big doors for you into life with Him and into your assignments. So thank you all. It's a red letter day here at Nancy McCready Ministries. And don't forget, save the date, September 29th, there will be a great gathering and celebration with many of our partners from Europe and the States gathering with us. So we look forward to it all. And I do love you and appreciate you so very much.
For more information on Nancy, please visit nancymccready.com or follow her on social media at NB McCready.